Okay, so this is super exciting. I mean, I'm with someone right now. This is Ben Kaplan. I'm the editor of iRun magazine, and with me is John Walker, who is a co-founder of Athletic Brewing, and John's the head brewer. So everything that you taste comes from his original recipes, and John is a pioneer in the non-alcoholic beer game. John, hey, welcome. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Give me the sense like when you were doing what you were doing in Santa Fe prior to Athletic, you were a craft brewmaster?
Yeah, technically not a brew master, but I was the head brewer at a small brew pub, and we had three pubs. And yeah, I was just brewing normal alcoholic beer when I met Bill, and he had this grand idea to kind of reinvent the non-alcoholic beer space.
What did you think when he pitched that to you?
So I think what was unique about our discussion is that I wasn't totally dismissive. Whereas he had met a lot of folks prior to meeting me who were kind of intrigued about the project in general, but didn't see really the space or opportunity that I did. I grew up in food and beverage. I've been around alcohol my entire life. Growing up in a bar, in a restaurant, working in food and beverage my entire life in, varying sorts. And there were a number of times in my life where I tried to get away from serving alcohol because it didn't feel great. And I also knew that non-alcoholic beer was totally normal because I've been doing inventory in many a bar for a long period of time. My father used to drink non-alcoholic beer after running, and I was like, this kind of makes sense. And then I have my like craft beer brain where it's the coolest scene because everybody's innovating all the time and saying, "Oh, let's play with this, let's play with this, let's try this. Nobody's done this." And I was like, "Oh, like all those things came together when I talked to Bill, and I was like, I think this makes sense."
It's incredible because I found there's such a relationship. It's interesting that you said your father was a runner and he drank non-alcoholic beer. I find the relationship myself, I'm a runner and a marathon runner, and the relationship between running and alcohol is like much closer than you would think if you were outside of this world. You wouldn't necessarily think the two things go together, and yet they're sort of like symbiotically married in this strange way.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's kind of counterintuitive if you think holistically about it. But yeah, I remember, I mean, I was little, I remember the exact setting in front of our fridge. He would crack open a non-alcoholic beer. It was O'Doul's at the time, and
Yeah.
he would take a sip and he was all sweaty and he's like, "Oh, it's so refreshing." And he's like the carbohydrates, and he was like teaching me this lesson in the nutrition of beer of sorts. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then I just, I still have that memory.
It's interesting because with my own self, like your products have been important to me because I've wanted to. I'm a father also, and I guess I'm a drinker also and a runner also. And I know for a fact that when I normalize not drinking alcohol, it just sticks with me like any pattern. I guess one of the things that we were talking about is you're rechristening sort of dry January, athletic January, or something. Can you just give me a sense about how, what, even in your own life or what you've definitely, the people that you know, how the non-alcoholic brewing ends up being part of an overall lifestyle sort of tweak?
Yeah, I mean, I think, what's unique about athletic and what we've talked about over and over for the past couple of years is like you kind of got to choose your own path. And it may be cutting alcohol out entirely. It may not be. It may be it's called zebra striping, where you like, you know, alcohol, no alcohol, alcohol, no alcohol. Could be that. It could be non-alcoholic during the week and alcohol on the weekends, whatever it is. But I think for me, and maybe similar for you, like I found ways to work it into my daily routine where I probably would have had an alcoholic beer, but I'm like, oh, I gotta like put both my kids to bed and or cook dinner and or make the lunches for tomorrow. And like those things didn't really work well together. But I wanted the beer, I wanted the feeling, and just like something to have in my hand. And so I think for a lot of people, it's just figuring out how to work it into your day. And there's no one size fits all. And again, what we've always said is like everybody should and could enjoy beer. It's good. It doesn't necessarily have to have alcohol in it, and you decide what's right for you.
It's just such an interesting thing. Whenever I drink an athletic, like I'm always like sort of like proud of myself or almost surprised in a sense that it's almost like this sensation kind of, and Ken Rideout, I've done a bunch of stuff with him in the magazine with Ken,
Hmm.
and he just talks about like once you just like the sensation sort of passes, you're still getting the dopamine or whatever it is. I don't know, and you can just
Yeah.
normalize that.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I think one of the things I learned early on with Bill after we started down this adventure, because I didn't really know how it was going to fit into my life, even when we were like
Yeah,
conducting the original experiments. And when we started like cracking the code on process and making good product, then I was like, wow, I want to drink this all the time.
yeah.
And I didn't have that sensation with alcoholic beer ever, even being a brewer. Like I knew that there were limitations and, times of the day where I did not want that, but I was like, I want this all the time. And I learned that I was in love with the ingredients that we put into beer, not necessarily the alcohol that is often a byproduct of fermentation.
I love, and I think for me, I'm almost in love with the ritual, or I'm in love with the sensation, or I'm in love with the notion of you have worked hard, and now I'm gonna delineate the hard work from stopping, and now you're into the next phase of like where you're at in your day or your night, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a just another example of like how does it fit in your life?
Talk to me a little bit about the evolution of the process. I mean, it's unbelievable to me that like that you've stayed through the whole course of the history of this company with all of these beers. So you can specifically speak to as we enter 2025, as people pursue dry January or athletic January, or people wake up from Christmas, like I do not want any more, you know,
Yeah.
sugary alcoholic drinks. I want to clean myself up and get going for 2025. Talk to me a little bit about how your products, like what are you most proud of? And if you take one of your beers that's coming out in December or January and you compare that, like how far has the category grown?
Yeah, I mean, I first of all, I gotta like hand off a ton of credit to the entire team
Of
because
course.
while, early on in developing some of the processes, our team is cranking out new, innovative, creative stuff every single day. So we wouldn't have all of the amazing things without them. But yeah, I mean, I think, to your point, just having all of the variety. So you can have the light brews, you can have zero sugar, you can have low gluten, you can have a wit beer, an IPA, a sour, a dark, whatever it may be. And so there's literally something for everybody. And so that's where the category has gone, where once upon a time it was you have this one or this one.
Yeah.
And, it's a brown pill or a green pill. And those were your choices, and that was fine. But now what we have is something for everybody, and that's kind of a unique, it's unique to athletics specifically because we have these outlets to create all these special brews. So it's super exciting. And then, we've got things like Round of Cheers, which we launch every year right around New Year's. And it's kind of like our take on a brute IPA and a brute champagne, if you will. And it's just kind of light and effervescent and refreshing and exciting and just something to cheers with.
What do you make of the moment that we're in? So much has been done about Gen Z is drinking less overall, and just the timing of what you did and the timing for Bill's idea and the timing of you being on it. Whereas it's sort of like you came to the idea of moderate drinking or less drinking almost right before the culture caught up to you. What do you make of the moment, and how does it feel that like why did you sense that coming? And actually, where does it go?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't necessarily know how I feel, except excitement.
Right.
You know, this is a a meaningful time in history, especially in the world of beverages and socialization, especially with all the recent, you know, obscure events that we've had in the past, 5 years. And so what's exciting to me is someday in an anthropology book or a history book, there's going to be a moment in time where there was a culture shift in the US that has already occurred in European nations, like several of them, where people kind of change their mind and they don't necessarily go away from drinking or away from beer, but they just choose to include another form of it. And it thereby enhances kind of socialization and, new atmospheres, new occasions. And so you've got more people doing the same thing that we've been doing for centuries. So I'm excited about it from like a historical perspective, but that's probably, I'm long gone and maybe there's a book about it. And I think that's a really exciting moment because it's just going to unleash and unlock a lot of opportunity for so many fun occasions for generations to come.
Can you unpack what you mean when you rewind that you say over the last decade or even 5 years, there's been specific cultural moments or changes or things?
Yeah, so I think for the longest time, people, in the US, and this is what Bill saw when he was doing early research, we've got Spain and Germany who transformed to have a significant non-alcoholic market, in the past 20, 30 years. And since then, they've adopted it into their culture and it's now a cultural norm. And so you have this massive drinking culture, but, between 7 and 15% of that drinking is alcoholic or is non-alcoholic. And so in the US, we're at like 1%, 1.5%. And so I think that we're just unlocking that right now. And soon, and maybe in the next 10, 15 years, we will have seen the full transition and unlocked that higher percentile and thereby, just enhancing experiences and occasions.
I mean, this is a bit of an easy question, and I know you're gonna. It's a little obvious, but I'm saying to my listeners and to runners and to people that are gonna like wake up January 1st, or they're gonna come back from the holidays, going to a resort in Cancun where it's been open bar all inclusive, and they're gonna come back and they're gonna feel like shit, and they're gonna be like, and it's gonna be cold, they're gonna come back from the all inclusive, and it's gonna be cold, and you're gonna have to go back to work and you're gonna have gained 10 pounds and you're gonna want to get yourself together. My readers, 35% of them said they were going to do dry January, and I'm trying to get that to like 50%. And my question to you is why? What's in it? I mean, what's in it? When Spain and Germany made that transition, and what do you think the other option unlocks?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my counter question would be why not? It's not that hard to like it's so easy to give it a shot. And once you give it a shot, you realize how quickly you can assimilate this into your lifestyle with, probably limiting repercussions. And so I guess I'd be more in the why not camp.
So it's kind of like, listen, if you're here, so here's John Walker who reinvented the sort of non-alcoholic beer category. And he's just saying, like, I mean, we're not even really, it's only pitching it for your own self. Like, give yourself a chance. What would happen if you go 30 days without consuming alcohol? Like, why not try it? Like, what would happen? What's the worst that could happen if you didn't drink alcohol for 1 month?
Yeah, no, exactly. I think, if you give it a shot, you figure out how to work it in, and I would argue that most would be pleasantly surprised. And it's not an all or nothing necessarily, but it's worth a shot.
Zebra stripes. All right. Well, I appreciate your time, man. I know how busy you are. Congratulations. I mean, it's unbelievable how successful your company has been, and a lot is to your recipes. So, thanks for talking to iRun. Thanks for talking to Canada. Since you're on the phone with Canada, do you have any thoughts or recollections or opinions about life or the culture of the running scene up here? You ever been?
No, I have been. Yeah, no, it's been super awesome to see the receptiveness out there. Between the marathons where our teams are handing out like record number of beers, the reception that we're, receive or the the welcomeness that we receive from the folks up there has been really awesome and really supportive. And so we're excited to grow with you and Yeah, I truly appreciate the support that you all have provided us, and looking forward to doing more in the future.